you'd hate to look at Obama's in tray, would you? I mean, but the surge strategy sounds like, you know, if you were one of his political opponents, you would say, ah, yes, they've learned from the Bush-Petraeus surge strategy in Iraq. They're going to do the same in Afghanistan, and it's a way of getting out.
It's an exit strategy. I mean, that's the hopeful way of thinking about it. The problem is that it's never that easy. And as Francis was saying, you know, Iraq isn't over with. You know, Iraq is not fixed, whatever that means. And Afghanistan is going to take a long time. But Obama clearly would like to fix it up enough so that basically what we used to call the Western world can then say, that's done, let's get out of here.
Right, it's a declare victory and retreat. But I mean, these problems are all interconnected. I just wanted to go back to the start of what I tried to suggest in this conversation. If Israel and Palestine is the key as far as many people, certainly in the Arab world, are concerned.
I think you have to look at the Afghanistan-Pakistan issue from the sort of the fighting terrorism angle as opposed to a more of a regional issue. I mean, obviously it is, but I think that the administration has realized that your threat, the al-Qaeda threat, was never in Iraq in the first place, because al-Qaeda didn't really exist in Iraq before the Americans went in. So I think that is basically a national security issue that they are now. And I was watching television yesterday and watching these, I think the Foreign Minister of Afghanistan saying they're actually quite happy that they're now linking Pakistan, the whole situation between Pakistan and Afghanistan, as one file as opposed to treating them separately.
But what about Israel and Palestine, as seen from here? That is the key to a lot of it, isn't it?
That is the key to a lot of it, and there was a lot of anger, and I think that was something that took people by surprise, and still isn't over, because you're now hearing the accounts of the Israeli soldiers, you know, shooting of innocent people, which is what Gaza, which is what the Arab media was reporting all along. But I don't think you were getting the full picture, and I think that created so much anger, and I think the administration has actually admitted that that policy is not going to work anymore.
How do you, I mean, has Obama simply brought a fresh tone, or is he bringing fresh policies, do you think, to the region?
Well, I think he brought a fresh tone, because so far in this part of the world, for the last 30 years, we have heard it from so many presidents, from Carter up to Obama. They all delivered promises during the election and even after the election. And unfortunately, the first 4 years of the administration, they keep very busy with a certain issue, and our agenda does not come in the top of the list.
Because it's usually domestic issues, it's usually the
economy.
Of course,
that, you know, that drives the issues, and now we understand it with the global, you know, economy turn down. You know, we understand the priority may be, you know, it's nice to talk about it, it's good to bring it into the things. As far as his statement concerned, I think what I like about his statement that he's trying to engage the rest with him. It's not like what President Bush would say, either you are with us or against us. Now he's trying to engage everybody. On Afghanistan or Pakistan issue yesterday in his speech, he was very clear on involving the rest, you know, and he wanted to see the whole world helping. In fact, he was addressing the Gulf nation in contributing and participating on addressing those issues. And we are a victim of, you know, terrorism. It's not only the America a victim of terrorism. So it is in our best interest to fight terrorism. We have been a victim, and we are fighting it.
When you say a victim, you mean, in fact, the whole Arab world, from Morocco through Egypt, of course, to Yemen, to anywhere, and the Gulf.
Of course, yes. You know, this is what I meant by that one. So the question is he able to deal with all the issue, like the nuclear issue in Iran and Iraq situation? You know, we feel very concerned about the US and British withdrawal from Iraq, because we feel that will create a security vacuum in Iraq as long as the Iraqi military and security establishment are not ready to take over completely.
Is implicit in what you're saying is that fear of Iran as well, filling that vacuum?
Well, there's two issues here. One, the ability of the Iraqi military establishment and rebuilding them again and equip them with the right thing. And second, the interventionist policy that Iran have adopted, you see, on Iraq, that's again, it's a big, because again, they have it ready-made for them to implement and do what they want. Since the US withdraw, I mean, we understand it is legitimate for Obama to say, I will move 30,000 soldiers from here to Afghanistan, because it's where Al-Qaeda, it's where the, you know, war against terror started, and so. But again, if he moves that and he creates a security vacuum in Iraq, we may end up having, and we have heard what Al-Qaeda have stated, you know, they want to create the Islamic, you know, state of Iraq.
These sensitivities, I mean, sometimes, as Stryker was saying, in the, quote, Western world, however you define it, are just not actually recognized for what they are, that this is a very, very, very serious problem. The question of, if you pull your troops out of Iraq at the wrong time, it could get even worse.
It could, because
as I was saying, the Iraqi balance there is not a done deal. I mean, and the Sunni Muslims could withdraw from supporting al-Maliki if they wanted. The Shiites could go back onto the streets. There's lots going on. But I think what's interesting is what Abdulaziz was talking about is in Iran, where Obama created a new tone by marking Iranian New Year. He gave a Nowruz speech and spoke to Iran directly, and for once didn't do this thing of we love the Iranian people but shame about the government. He said, you, the Iranian government and people, we want to talk to you.
Yes, and
he was very
the word respect was quite obviously part of the tone of all that.
The cultural diplomacy for the first time.
Cultural diplomacy.
Absolutely, which is fascinating. You know, he used poetry. He used the the Farsi language was translated. He used the new means of technology, the YouTube, where people can download it and send it through SMS.
Because he knows how subversive that is in Iran, because a lot of Iranians use it. I mean, it is, as Abdulaziz was saying, there is certainly a change of tone. Whether it finds its way through to change in policy is another matter, because Iran and whether or not they are building a bomb is still a problem, no matter who the American president is and no matter what the governments around the region think.
Yeah, I mean, he's been in office now for 60-something days.
Yeah, why doesn't he get on with it?
It feels like he's been there for years. But I think, as Abdulaziz is saying, and just as Abdulaziz's tone indicates, there's so much goodwill for Obama. And he must take advantage of it. He has to take advantage of it. Obviously, not all of it is going to work, but I think he seems to be moving on so many fronts so fast, and that's the right thing to do because the spirit of goodwill is there for him.
Can I just ask a sort of internal American question, which is, putting in Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, having very tough and highly respected people like Richard Holbrooke dealing with the Afghanistan-Pakistan issue and these sort of top diplomats, is that seen as a way of allowing Obama to concentrate much more on what most Americans want, which is economic policy, because he's got these quite considerable figures who, across parties, people understand that they have his authority and that they're very intelligent, they can get on with the job?
Yes, I think it is meant to do that. It also reflects, I think, the self-assurance that he has, that he can put people of such high profile in those jobs. And the other really important thing is that they are speaking for him. Hillary Clinton is not she's not a wild card, she's not a maverick. When she speaks, she's speaking for Obama, and if that ever changes, that will become a problem.
Again, how significant do you think this is in terms of how, I was going to use the word optimistic, perhaps I should just say hopeful, that's a slightly more neutral word. How hopeful should we be that Obama in his first term will be able to solve any of these problems, make serious progress on the Middle East issues? I
think as Stryker said, it's early days, it's only 60 days, and he's making all the right approaches, he's making the right noises, but the Iranians are too busy with Nowruz to notice, and also the timing is a bit odd because we've got the Iranian election coming up. And even though it doesn't really matter because ultimately you've got a clerical regime, the head of the Supreme Religious Council is really the one who has the final say on these major issues. But you've got a government in the making in Israel, you've got elections coming up in Iran, you've got elections coming up in Lebanon. So the region is still in a state of flux at the moment. So all these messages are being well received. The Iranians, I think, were a bit ambivalent and said, we want to see action, we want to see easing of sanctions, we want you to stop this sort of aggressive tone. And the other side of the equation is, I think, the Arab Gulf, and I think you and I spoke about this, Abdulaziz, that the Arabs are not very happy to see a rapprochement between Iran and the US if it's going to be at their expense, because there are a lot of issues that they're concerned about.
Well, I was going to come on to exactly that. I remember sitting here actually in Abu Dhabi a couple of years ago talking to some people who said, if we have to live under the shadow of what one person called the Persian bomb for the rest of our lives, that will destabilize the entire Gulf. Is that still the feeling, that this is a really serious issue?
It is still the feeling, and this is why we are very pleased to see that the nuclear issue is a red tape in Obama administration. This is why they have not compromised about that issue. And I think the biggest concern here in the region is having Iran with a nuclear military program this definitely would raise the sort of nuclear arm race in this part of the world.
And you have no doubts that that's what they're up to, because as I say,
Well,
as you
so
know
far,
what the official Iranian view is.
So
it's not
far they have
military.
not proven otherwise. So far they have lied to the rest of the world in 2003 when they say they have stopped the enrichment, and then they came out and they say, yes, we're doing the enrichment. They've signed the additional protocol, but they have not ratified it. They have not cooperated enough with the Atomic Energy Organization to give the rest of the world enough ease at that one. And this is why we understand now there are an area of complementarity, area of agreement and disagreement between the US and Iran. For instance, over Afghanistan, the US and Iran have full agreement. They don't want to see a Sunni radical regime, neither in Afghanistan or in Pakistan. We understand that. But at the same time, it's when the Iranians want to have the right for the full cycle of the enrichment of uranium, where the US say, no, there is a Security Council resolution, you will not do that, and you have been giving an alternative to do such an enrichment outside, like the Saudi proposal, the Russian proposal, or the EU proposal. There were 3 different alternatives for them, which they have not picked up any one of them.
And just to pick up on something you said at the start of that, I mean, the prospect of an arms race here then, because if people did feel there was an Iranian bomb, they wouldn't just sit idly by, would they, in Saudi Arabia or perhaps even in Turkey?
Well, I mean, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and those who have signed nuclear cooperation deals in order to handle their civil needs of power and water, which is driving the nuclear race here, which is a peaceful nuclear race because they actually need water and power for the double population which is coming in 20 years. They've been quite specific, and they've said we will not enrich, but they want to create a new UN body which will do the enrichment for them, and they've been absolutely clear that they're not going to get into that bomb race. The other question is, what are you going to do with a nuclear bomb? I mean, say Iran has one. Where are they going to put it? Where are they going to drop it? It's such a powerful weapon in a fight around the region which is actually not really about demolishing 20 square kilometers. It's about minds and hearts of people. It's about fighting this war, this brush war, this insurgency. It's not a nuclear bomb situation. So, I mean, so what do they have it?
Well, it's a fair question, although I know from talking to some Iranians, the reason they would have it is, for example, North Korea has one and has not been attacked. Iraq didn't have one and was attacked. That's repeated over the past 6 or 7 years.
Absolutely. I think there are 2 keys here vis-a-vis Iran. One is, how will the new Israeli government respond? In other words, will they sit back and wait, give Obama a lot of time to try to sort out that problem, or will they act unilaterally? There remain some fears about what Israel might do. The other thing is...
Just to pursue that, but does that change if it's a Labour coalition with a right-wing government? Because some people think that might help relations with the United States.
Well, but some people also think that maybe what this will do is it will make it easier for Netanyahu with a Labour party in the coalition to do something like that. So this gets very complicated. The other thing is Russia. You know, how will Russia act vis-a-vis Iran? And
bearing in mind it's a neighbouring power, I'm not going to.
Well, absolutely, and I believe that they're supplying the uranium to Iran, so they are key to any solution there. And I read this morning that Medvedev is making more sort of more helpful sounds on Iran than he has been before.
We began this conversation talking about, among other things, what Obama might or might not do, how his leadership was being seen in the region. I mean, how do you think people will feel about that now, given the complexities of these issues? They're enormous.
Well, you know, when I was at an OPEC meeting in Vienna last week, and one of the senior people in OPEC said to me, he said, you know, George Bush was actually one of the best things that ever happened to us. So you know, seen from their perspective, George Bush was an oil man. You saw oil prices soar at this time. He wasn't a green president, which Obama is, and I think there's, you know, on the.
Okay, we're going to leave it there on that happy note. That's all from Dateline Dubai. We're back in London next week. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.